Namathu Ratanatayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Zim, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening, everyone. So today is Saturday, the 5th of December 2020. And this is Achan Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. As usual, I'm here with you all tonight. Hello, Margaret. Hello, Karina. And hello, everyone. So today, again, I will be telling and talking about the same topic in relation to the continuing from the past. But before that, I would like to recall my memories. About over 10 years ago, I was reading one parish church newsletter in King's Bromley in England. And one of that parish church newsletter, there was a very beautiful story. Was about a country in the remote village. There was a man in the evening gazing to the sun and having a lovely drink of a glass of wine and watching the sunset. And there comes one businessman from the city and approached to him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm watching this sunset and having a drink, a glass of wine." And then he said, this story goes on saying that you have this lake where there are so many fish. You could have collect more fish and then sell it to the market. And this farmer village uneducated man asks, "Why should I do that?" And then he said, "You will get more money." And then, "Why should I have to have more money?" And then he said, the businessman, he said, "Oh, you could have a big house, and then you could have a big nice car, and you can hire so many people and someone will work for you." And then this uneducated village man said, "What is that for?" And he said, and then the businessman said, "Oh, so that you can come in this evening time like this and sit comfortably and watch the sunset and have a pint and a glass of wine." And this poor village man replied, "What do you think am I doing now?" Yeah. So the story is a businessman from the city is basically thinking of how to maximum his income and get more financial, more money, and become luxurious, so that end of the day, in a late life, he can enjoy having sitting by the lake and watching the sunset and having this glass of wine. And that's so long planning for the future. Whereas this man who brought up in a village, uneducated but living with the nature, and every night he's catching the sufficient fishes and then making a fish into a barbecue and then having a glass of wine and watching comfortably, despite of having too much burden of thinking about so many people, of thinking about how to get more money, and so and so. And this is what we are in urban civilization. We're all driving and trying to make out of and trying to make money out of everything, and then end of the day we're all looking for a comfortable life and a renunciation of all the world, and you are going into somewhere quiet, peaceful, no one can disturb you, and you are just enjoying with the nature. So this is our so-called hopes and dreams. So, and this is how we are living in this world. And that with that we become so much materialistic, and we become a part of this production and reproduction system. Although we know that the Karl Marx theory is rejected, so long, this so-called capitalism, and yet, despite we have rejected, or the nations have rejected his theory of a capitalism, but we are heavily bombarded with it. I remember when I was studying in Aberdeen University, when I read some of the passages, and Karl Marx was saying that even the stones you can sell if you know how to sell it, and which is true nowadays. You can buy stones from big Tesco's, or even in a garden. You can buy grass, you can buy trees. All things become commercialized, and you are promoted to buy those things so you can make out of it. So theoretically we reject the theory of the Karl Marx, but we are bombarded. Basically nowadays we are with that theory which we have rejected. And we have, never enough. We always want to have more and more. And this is the materialistic world. And we try to make things into the measurements and values and monetary equivalence and so and so. That's why we become more miserable. The more we have got it, the more miserable we become. But having said that, it does necessary too. Some levels we have to know how much do we need, rather than how much do we want. And this whole series that I have been talking in it's been a week now. They call the gradual teachings, on the basis of the teachings that the Buddha gave it to a young man known as a Yesa. And this Yesa was also very wealthy. According to the scripture literature, it says that the Yesa, this young man, was only a boy of a wealthy family. He wears the golden sandal. He had similar 3 palaces for the 3 different seasons, and every night he had so many beautiful musicians playing songs, and luxurious food he had. And somehow one night, the story says, during the musicians were just playing all the musics and having a dance and entertainment going on, he fell asleep. In the middle of the night, when he woke up, he looked at all the party members, realized that everyone was sleeping like in the cemetery, dead bodies all around. Someone was snoring, someone was splitting the salivas, and someone was just making a sound of a saliva taking and snoring. It was like a complete cemetery where all the bodies are dead. And with that scene, he thought to himself that, oh, what a danger this is. I am truly afflicted. Oh, I am in danger. I am truly afflicted. So his mind was conditioned with that I am in danger, I am afflicted. So constantly repeating and thinking and pondering on these two sentences, he didn't want to stay in his home. So he went out. It was the time, so he went out. And then somehow along the way, because his mind was so thinking about it and pondering on that, he forgot everything and he simply entered into the forest where the Buddha was staying. And he was, as he was shouting that I am in danger, I am afflicted. So despite of having so much wealth, he felt such danger and affliction. And simply, speaking out loud, and having heard his saying, Buddha called him, saying the beautiful word. It says, "Oh yes, sir, there is no danger here. There is no affliction here. Come here and I will tell you the path of no danger and no affliction." And that's how he came across with the Buddha. It's like when we are having too much suffering and a depression and anxiety, and somehow somebody comes and tells you, "Oh, I will be here for you. You can rely on me. I know that you are going through the difficult time." And suddenly, probably half or maybe if not all, our problems will just subside. And similarly, that happened to the Yesa, the young man who was afflicted, who was simply, afflicted by the thought of this danger. And when Buddha told him that there is no danger and there is no affliction, "Come to me, I will tell you the path." And immediately he kneels down with a soul relief that there is someone who can lead me, who can tell me the way. And so he took off, the story says, he took off this golden sandals and then bowed down 3 times to the Buddha. And after that, Buddha gave these gradual teachings that I've been talking about. So initially, the Buddha taught the charity and initially the first Buddha talked about the charity and the morality, or the generosity and ethical living, and then about the hollowness of impurity and unhappiness by, which produced by the sensual pleasure. And further on, Buddha even talked about how to attain more sensual pleasures in attaining or reborning in the heavens. And there's 2 nights when I was talking about the concept of the heavens, I feel very uncomfortable because I feel like it's so difficult subject to comprehend and difficult subject to tell, because there are so many people do not believe in it, and it is so difficult to prove too, because I'm still a human. I haven't been there. Probably I have, in my one of the previous or many previous lives. As I have said, my mom, when my birth certificate was written, it says that my previous birth I was a Devas, like that. So, but I don't know. Okay, so and Buddha was talking about that, and then last night I was talking about the benefit of coming out from the sensual pleasure. It's called kama dinava. And the last one what Buddha was talking about is advantages of a renunciation. Nekkhamma katha, renunciation. And this renunciation is something which is not easy. The first Buddha was simply telling us that, as worldlings, or living in a household life, how one can be happy by accumulation of the wealth and the prosperity, and even not just in this world that you are prosperous, but also there are ways that you can feel comfortable afterlife, reborning in the heavens, which is more, which the place where you will have more sensual pleasures. And suddenly Buddha break that chain, saying that there is a more happier than the sensual pleasure is, giving up, discarding the sensual pleasure, overcoming from the sensual pleasure. Because the more we dwell on or think about or ponder about the sensual pleasure, this mind will be afflicted by it, and then it's become a inclination of that, and everything becomes a sensual pleasure. So with that, Buddha simply saying that when you come out from the sensual pleasure, there is more freedom, more happiness out there. And that was the adinava that yesterday I was talking about, the real security and freedom that you attain by letting go of essential pleasure. And the last one, this is the renunciation, is a nekkhamma katha, is something that you are renouncing the worldly life and how peaceful you can be. And in this relationship, Buddha talked about it to the bhikkhus, the venerable monks, while he was living at the Savatthi, the Jeta's grove, on one occasions, saying or telling his experiences to the monks after he became enlightened, saying that before he became enlightened, while he was meditating, he had different kinds of thoughts arose, and among those different thoughts, he categorized into two thoughts. That's why it's called the Dveda Vitaka Sutta. Yeah? It's in a middle length discourse. So he divided into two classes. One is a positive and one is a negative. So the two thoughts divided into two places, two classes. One is a negative thoughts and the second is a positive thoughts. In terms of the negative thoughts, he was talking about thought of essential pleasure, a thought of ill will, and thought of cruelty, and which again he mentioned that whenever someone is thinking about essential pleasure, it afflicts a person who is thinking of, and then it afflicts to the other people, and then it afflicts to the both. And this is also, it obstructs to arise wisdom, and it may cause some more difficulties in our lives, and also it doesn't lead to the nibbana, the supreme happiness. So that's why whenever these thoughts arises, Buddha gave us an idea or the instruction that we have to notice that these thoughts have arisen in me, or basically considering that I'm having this thought of essential pleasure, ill will, and cruelty. And when we think about it and ability to understand it clearly, it subsides. And when it subsides, doesn't mean that it doesn't comes back again. It will come back again and again. And every time when it comes back, we have to abandon it, we have to remove it, and we have to destroy it, dispel it, and if possible, wipe it out completely. And this wiping out is not easy job. So he was instructing, he was simply saying that whenever a person is thinking about or pondering on essential pleasures, at that time he cannot cultivate the thought of a renunciation. He cannot thought of renunciation. And similarly, whenever someone is thinking and pondering on the ill will, he cannot generate the thought of non-ill will or the loving kindness. So what happens is that the very moment when we know that thought of a renunciation is there, we have to make it more rather than we just let it be. Because the thought of renunciation, whenever it is there or arisen in our minds, it doesn't lead to the affliction. It doesn't lead to the affliction of others. It doesn't lead to the affliction of both ourselves and then to others. And further on, this will help us to generate wisdom and minimize so many difficulties that we are facing in our life. And with this, it leads to the happiness that we are looking for. And this happiness is beyond the material aids. Not linking or not rely on the material, but the freedom from your mind. Okay? But however, we have to be very mindful here that sometimes, because of seeing that the sensual pleasure is not good and it is afflicted, and affliction, it brings affliction to oneself and then to others or both, and then you excessively thinking about the renunciation, and then renunciation is good. In that way, what happens is that although it's a positive thing, and this is again what we have to be mindful here. Sometimes we think we know that this is good and we excessively doing it, and you may have experienced it too, that because of your doing excessively, your body becomes tired. And when your body becomes tired, basically mind strains. And when your mind is strained, then you cannot concentrate. Your mind is not concentrated. It's become sleepy, or sometimes it makes you feel bored, and then makes you feel thought of giving up. So in this case, similarly, we know that the renunciation is good, and we excessively thinking and pondering about it, then it may lead to the excessive, because of the excessiveness, the tiredness of the body, and because of the tiredness of the body, that may lead to the strain of the mind, and we cannot get the concentration. So in those cases, what we have to do is to just let it be, and then rather than thinking about the renunciation as one which is positive and we should cultivate, we should understand it that okay, this is good, and now I will cultivate it. And you simply internalize yourself. So mind become internalized, and then a mind simply rests, become a single-minded, become a one-pointedness. And that moment when you're calm, collected and single-minded, your mind is so sharp and still, at that time, with your awareness, you have to release. And this again, if you've been following my instructions previously, and I used to tell or instruct saying that once you have attained the calmness or stillness of your mind, you have to release yourself and let the senses work. And here, let the senses work basically means you're observing everything what's happening, and basically practicing insight meditation, knowing things the way are. And this is how you will be experiencing the benefit of a renunciation. And there are so many other discourses Buddha talked about the benefit of a renunciation, like a Samanyapala Sutta, one of the very good discourse appears in the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses. It explains the benefit of a renunciation, that you become a freedom from all the clutters, all the attachments, and you're simply learning to be free, not only the worldly life, but also free from all the kilesas, all the taints, asavas. There is a story comes in the literature was one king who was very well respected, and then after being a king for so long, and he felt that this is so tiring, and he didn't have a time for himself, always engaged into the stories after stories, business after business, and duties after duties. And then when his son, crown prince, was well enough to govern the country, he simply gave it to his son to govern, and he became the king. So he became the monk. He left the kingship and became a monk. And after he became a monk, and he was meditating, and after the meditation he feels such a freedom, and he was saying that, oh, what a freedom, I am happy, what a freedom, I am happy. And suddenly Prasenjit Kosala, the king, he was coming to visit the Buddha at that time, and hearing that, oh, I am free, I am free, the king was frightened, and was like, oh, I am happy, and how could he was saying like that? So and he was investigated, and he said that while he was a king, he had so many responsibilities, and he never had a freedom. He always had a fear of someone can attack, and then never satisfied with the things and like that. But after becoming a monk and renouncing all, he simply felt such a freedom, no burden, no fear of anybody come and attack him. And as a result, he was, with joy and happiness, was saying out loud that I am free, and I am happy, like that. And this again I can relate to myself as being a head monk, and so many responsibilities. Sometimes I'm doing so many things and no one can notice what am I doing, and with that sometimes my head is so big, and then sometimes I can't even function what am I thinking of. And sometimes with this, whenever I'm away from the center, I feel so free. When I go for a walk again, I feel so free. So like that. So whenever there is more responsibilities, you are bound to have more troubles that you have to face. But the very moment when you are able to let go and renounce, then you will attain real freedom. So we have to learn to let go. We have to learn to renounce ourselves, so that we can attain the real happiness, if not this life, in near future life. So I wish you all the best, able to renounce all the clutters, all the emotional attachments, all the burdens, all the things that is bothering you. Renounce them and find the real happiness by living in this life. So with this, I end here tonight's talk, and thank you everyone for listening. May you all be well and happy, and take care. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. In a few moments time we're going to have evening chanting and guided meditation. You're most welcome to join with us. Until then, good night, and see you shortly. Thank you. Satu.